Hey, welcome to the Superdome for today's game between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. It's day one of Rizzy Ball. We're going to see what that looks like. A lot of change here. I don't know what to expect today, honestly. I can't predict good things for the Saints based on just there's a lot of players out.
They are the same team that's lost 7 games in a row.
Yeah.
They changed the energy in the building this week. They really did. But they're still, like, you made a great point earlier this week. They're, like, now people will start recognizing the excuses. Like, they can't just blame Dennis Allen anymore, so maybe they'll blame the fact that they don't have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Eric McCoy, Lucas Patrick, Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo, or Kool-Aid McKinstry if they lose.
The one thing that you never have to worry about, no accountability, no predicting, you always know what you're going to get. It's Matt Bauer's Car Dealerships. Go check him out at one of his many locations throughout the region. He'll get you the best prices, the best customer care, and you might be disappointed with some cars, but you'll never be disappointed with his. So,
oh, wow. Wow.
I mean, he's right there.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not disappointed with him. I think he's played pretty good this year. Last week was a tough game, but yeah.
I'm just in awe. I can't wait to see your story today because you're in your bag.
Yeah, I am. I am. Yeah. Jake Hainer right there, Derek Carr on the screen. So what do you expect from him today? I mean, you're losing Lucas Patrick out of that line. The line might be spotty again. Falcons are, they can get a little bit of interior rush. What are we expecting to see from Carr? He doesn't have any wide receivers. Chris Olave's out. Rashid Shaheed's out. That means Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to be probably wide receiver 1 or 2. Like he's at the high end of it.
Bud Means is out too. Remember when he had a minute being wide receiver 1 and then they took him away too. So
Mason Tipton's going to be a meaningful player today. Kevin Austin Jr. could be a meaningful player today. Dante Pettis could be a meaningful player today. I don't like the shape of the offense. I don't like the shape of the offense at all.
There's Taysom Hill doing leg lifts or whatever warm-ups there. Maybe it's Taysom Hill day, and it should be. Yeah, look, I think Carr's going to have good games before the season is over, especially when Eric McCoy comes back. We may never see Chris Olave back. We're definitely not going to see Rashid Shaheed back. I've said it a million times. I still believe it. I think Carr is in the Baker Mayfield zone, the Geno Smith zone, and if you surround him with good enough things, then he can have success, but he can't lift you out of bad circumstances. He gives them much more of a chance to win than Spencer Rattler did. But I don't know if there's enough around him for, he's not gonna do it by himself. It's not gonna be like when Drew Brees played the Falcons in this building in 2018 and threw 4 touchdowns to 4 different undrafted players for the first time in NFL history. That's not what he is gonna do. But he gives you a decent chance to win, and I think we've both been a little higher on him than the general consensus, but we also don't think he can lift them beyond these circumstances.
Yeah, and I worry that the circumstances are too steep today.
Yeah.
I mean, he needs some people to throw the ball to. If he's going to win this game, it's going to have to be between the hashes, throwing a lot to his tight ends, over the middle, up the seams. We saw Spencer Rattler kind of unlock Jawan Johnson with some of that stuff. Foster Moreau had a great touchdown last week. So those guys can make plays. He's going to have to go to them. Also, really going to have to lean heavily on Alvin Kamara. And, if you wanted to make a case for the Saints being able to win this game, I thought the last time they played the Falcons, they were moving the ball on the ground really well, and then Taysom Hill went out, and it kind of fell apart. So maybe having him back on the field, you can run the ball maybe with both those guys on the field.
Their offense actually stayed in that game the whole time. I mean,
they looked great at the beginning, and they kind of you took them out, and there was an effect. That was kind of the start of the whole Taysom narrative for the fan base.
The last week, Derek Carr, I think, played his worst game of the season, one of his worst as a Saint. We expected rust coming off that injury. The rust factor, I think, has to be out the window, but I expect less rust too. So if he has a bad game, a lot less benefit of the doubt. And then the other thing that has really destroyed him, the Kansas City game was really bad with that pressure up the middle. Philadelphia game was pretty ineffective with pressure up the middle. I don't think Atlanta presents that same threat. As you said, they've had running success against them last time. Atlanta's interior defensive line is not like a super advantage that they have in this game.
Yeah, one of the more interesting pieces of news came out yesterday. Alvin Kamara got named to a captaincy, which that's kind of weird to do midseason. That's never happened here before. I mean, other teams have done it late in the season, but kind of interesting just to see him in that role. I think we've always viewed him as a team leader. It makes you wonder what the vote looked like coming out, and if just kind of the issues with the
him
the
holding out
staff,
and everything.
the issues with the staff kind of, was like, no. Like, obviously, I think his teammates see him in that role. He was voted a captain at the beginning of DA's tenure, I think.
He was voted a captain once.
I want to say it was
years
in
ago,
21.
I think. So it was probably DA's first year. Maybe?
I want to say it was. But, yeah, I mean, obviously.
Well, I mean,
there he is right there.
At the time they voted for captains this year, it was, after he had skipped OTAs, left minicamp, left it in limbo whether he's coming for training camp. And remember, there was the weird rhetoric coming from the other leaders about showing up and being here and everything like that. So I don't know if that influenced that vote or not. But everything that happened from day one of training camp, his buy-in, his commitment, everything he was saying on the record about how much he loves his team, backing it up by signing the 2-year extension, playing through injuries, having the most touches of his career and setting that record twice now, including the 36 touches last week. He is his like, I'm going to go out and show you how much I care, supersedes any contract negotiations or whatever. I wrote this whole story this week about his body language. They joke about it. He knows that sometimes he looks like he doesn't care. This is a dude who cares very, very much. And he was the spokesperson for the locker room. He also talked to me about that this week, how he said his responsibility in the coaching change was, I kind of step up and say what the mood of the locker room is, because I think I know how people feel in this locker room, and I take responsibility for that. And this locker room needed something different. And so as a guy who everybody agrees is a valid spokesman for the locker room, it's an absolutely fitting title. I'm curious if the captains themselves came up and said, we want Alvin being a captain, if Rizzy wanted it. I've heard that he's been a big shepherd for Rizzy. He's helping Rizzy a lot. I think even General Manager Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson and everybody are really impressed with everything he's done this year.
He was last to captain in 22. Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't know what the locker room politics were at the time, but I'd be surprised if any of his teammates held him taking care of his business against him as if he were a bad leader or anything like that. I think he's shown up every step of the way, especially in bad times. If anything, I mean, I would assume those issues came from the second floor and not the first floor. But a really cool thing to see. I mean, I think he deserves it. He should be in that role. And to us, like, he's always kind of been the heartbeat of the team. He speaks to it. He doesn't lie about it. He's not afraid to make the difficult comments, lead people in the right direction, and all that stuff. And I would argue that over the last 2 years, despite all the commentary, all the frustration, the guy, kind of walking right up to that line and saying, hey, the coach needs to go, but never quite saying it. I would say he played harder than anybody on the field. Every time you looked at it, it was visibly obvious he was trying harder.
Yeah.
Maybe, I won't say harder than anyone else, but nobody was trying harder, I think is a fair way to say that. So that was kind of interesting. He's going to need to have a big game today for them to win this game. And if you haven't read Mike's story on him, really, really good. That's on our website. Go check that out. Sign up for NewOrleans.Football. And stay locked in with everything. We'll have the post-game show after the game, live from the field about 7:30 tonight. If you're a member, you get that tonight. Everybody else gets it tomorrow. You get all of our news, our analysis. We'll be covering a coaching search soon, obviously. What we won't probably be covering is a complete rebuild of the team.
No.
We've been saying it for 3 years. They weren't going to do it. We're saying it all week. They aren't going to do it. Ian Rappaport put out a story today saying, don't expect a rebuild. Not a surprise to me at all.
I do think, though, they've already done things that are different than they've done before. They signed a couple players this year and didn't make them put ghost years on their deals. They actually waited a long time before they restructured Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara. They almost didn't restructure every big contract on the deal. They obviously curtailed a lot of spending this offseason, and then traded Marshawn Lattimore, which is unlike anything they've done since 2015, deciding to trade someone who's still in their prime for draft picks. So I would not be shocked if they continue to take those baby steps at the very least. And the big question is back to the guy we talked to at the beginning of this, is Derek Carr. I mean, I think Cam Jordan is a big question because of where he's at in his career. I think that'll be either pay cut or retirement. Or release if it's mutually agreed upon. It would be something he'd work with them and lower his salary and help with the salary cap, I think. But Carr's the big question mark to me. You don't have to tear it down to the studs to decide not to pay a quarterback $40 million. And I'm fascinated what direction they go there, and I think the new head coach will have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the coach will probably have to say something about it. Somebody asked in the chat, what do they do with larger contracts? Taysom, Tyron, Cam, etc. You just mentioned Cam. I mean, I think some of them other guys are gonna. I mean, they're gonna get restructured. Like they have to. They have to create cap space. So, pretty much, you got two options here. You can touch everybody but Carr, or you can restructure Carr and kind of be selective with some of these. But you aren't going to get the ideal scenario
you can't
with
do all.
both. Yeah,
you can't. You mathematically can't do all.
You can't say we aren't touching this stuff and not pushing any more money to the future. They're pushing money to the future. It has to be done because they're going to be $60-some million over the cap or whatever when the season ends. So they got to do some of it.
No matter what, 2026 will look better than it's looked. I mean, already eating Marshawn's entire cap hit next year, and maybe doing that with one or two more guys, whether it's Carr, whether it's Cam. Ramczyk will be off the books soon. You know, they'll be down to just a few million from him. No matter what, 2026 will represent, unless they go on a free agent spending spree next offseason, which we don't expect that either. We don't expect teardown. We don't expect free agent spending spree. It's going to start, and by then the cap will be close to $300 million a team. 2026 is going to look a little better.
I don't even think they can, really – boy, getting to the point where you could go on a free agent spending spree. You could, do everything to the max, but
they just signed Carr 2 years ago. You could if you really want to.
It would be incredibly reckless to do that with where this team's at. Someone asks, is this a mini touches as Taysom and Alvin can handle type of game? I would say, yeah. I mean, I think you have to lean on both those guys to. You got to be in the game.
I mean, that's what they want to do. They want to run it 35 times, but they got to keep it competitive, and that's a big question mark.
You don't want to be leaning on Mason Tipton and Marquez Valdez-Scantling to kind of carry everything they can do. So, yeah, I mean, I would expect Taysom and Alvin to get a ton of touches, especially Alvin. I think, they're going to lean on him heavily. The other piece of news this week, Chris Olave goes on IR yesterday, an expected move from the team. I personally do not expect to see him back again this season. I've heard from 3 or 4 different people who say the plan is for him to kind of go away, strengthen up, get his neck stronger, come back, and be ready to go next year. You never know, though. He could feel better in 6 weeks. I mean, the end of the season is a long time away. They could go on an improbable winning streak, and then maybe that changes kind of your viewpoint toward the season. But I'm not really expecting to see him again this season, and I think that's a good decision for him. I think it's not the worst thing for the team if you're looking at draft stock as something that matters here. There's little moves that can be made, and this is not team-driven. If he doesn't come back, that would be a Chris decision. I think they're still trying to get all hands on deck and try to win as many games as possible. Eric McCoy's on the horizon, probably next week playing. They're trying to get everyone back. If Chris wanted to play and he was healthy, they would have him on the field. That's a Chris-driven decision, but that's a decision that helps you get a better draft pick. And, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world for this team. I think it's a good thing for Chris.
I'm glad that there won't be the playoff push weighing into his decision. I hope he makes the right decision regardless of team situation.
Much bigger than football. I mean, considerations that are really, really important. And someone asked, who do we expect to start at left guard today with Lucas Patrick down? I saw you had a good PFF score last week. What do y'all think of him? I think Nick Saldivari.
He did it last time, so yeah. I mean,
he's been okay. I mean, he's somebody. I'm not super high on he should be starting next year or something like that. I mean, there's a lot.
By the way, I mean, I do not expect. I mean, I think we'll see when the inactives come out that this is not a play all the rookies and play all the young guys situation for this team yet. Maybe they'll get there in December. They're not there yet in November. But Nick Saldivari is a guy who I would like to play as much as possible.
Yeah, get him experience.
You got to know what he is.
Yeah, he hasn't done enough to make me say that's the starter next year. I thought he was going to be the starter this year. Obviously, it didn't happen that way. Lucas Patrick's on a 1-year deal. I think he's somebody that could potentially end up on IR. Not going on this week. Maybe takes that out of the cards. I know it was part of the discussion this week. He's been walking in a walking boot, I believe, on his right leg. So, I mean, that's something that he could get a lot of snaps here down the stretch. Here's one, and we disagree on this. I already know it. Someone said, am I crazy for taking the Saints money line? I say yes.
What is this? I want to know what the Saints money line is.
Well, no, they're taking them straight up to win.
No, but I'm saying I want to know how much. Can you get 3-1, 4-1 on your money? Yeah. I just have a weird feeling. I don't have any actual football X's and O's research behind it, but I just have that the Saints are going to win wild prediction vibe. You said that on the way into Dallas, and I thought you were crazy then. Sometimes you just get those feelings. I could be completely wrong, but I think before the wheels really fell off on this team, as recently as 2 weeks ago, I was still looking at this as a team that could finish 5-4 because I still think there's talent on this roster, and I don't think it's crazy to say they don't belong on the same ball field as the Falcons. So I wouldn't be crazy if this game's more competitive than we all expect. I don't think Saints losing to Panthers made any sense football-wise either. But of course, I would pick the Falcons to win this game. But if you're giving me hey, 3-1, put a little money on it that you can afford to lose. Stranger things have happened.
It's plus 168, so $100 wins you $68.
It's not 3-1. Yeah.
I would not wager $1 on it. I don't think there's any chance they win this game. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Mason Tipton are the starting receivers. You don't have Kool-Aid McKinstry. You don't have Marshawn Lattimore. You don't have Paulson Adebo. So either Rico Payton or Gene Charles is going to be starting the corner. I thought Gene Charles played okay.
Yards.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't see a scenario where Chris Olave's not playing.
No, I get it.
Like 4 of their 5 best players aren't in this game. I don't see it.
I'm not tackling you to the ground to make.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. You're basing it on the Rizzi change and like buy-in and trying hard and all that stuff. And like, I think that's going to be a real thing. And
but you can't overcome.
You can try so hard, but then at some point you're throwing the ball to Kevin Austin Jr. on 3rd down, and I mean that's just not where I want to put my money. Like
we've spent about a total of 3 minutes talking X's and O's in this football game this week because it just feels like it doesn't matter at all. But I actually think the Saints can move the ball with Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson, and Foster Moreau better than the other side of the ball. The other side of the ball scares me more. Kirk Cousins to Darnell Mooney and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. We're going to see their inactives. I think London is going to play. I'm not sure about Pitts. But I don't think the Saints can stop this passing game, and I actually think that's the scariest part of this matchup.
Will Harris being back at him on the screen right now, I think that's potentially something that could help, with some of that. I mean, you get your 2 starting safeties, designed for it. But, that goes back to your earlier point about them really not spending money. I mean, that's a veteran minimum guy who got brought in, part of the mix, compete. He ends up winning the job. So, I mean, like, the tear it down thing is never a thing. But, like, rebuilding is kind of happening right now. There was a big push to get younger this offseason. I think they feel good about getting some of these young guys snaps and all that stuff. And he ended up being somebody that won that job from a young guy. But, again, there wasn't a big push to get – they made their offer to Justin Simmons once that became a thing. But – there wasn't a big priority. It's kind of crazy to think back to it. They fired their coach, and at one point they were looking to get Justin Simmons, Devontae Adams, all that stuff. Yeah, and it all made sense. I mean, until the wheels fell off, like it felt like there was something there. And there is another universe where this season plays out and nobody gets hurt and they're fine. Like they're okay. They're not completely sunk, but. In the real world, it was just too much, and there wasn't enough
I think we're allowed
talent.
to say that now that DA's been fired. I think we're now allowed to acknowledge that this team had the potential to be a double-digit win team. Nobody wanted to hear that when they really wanted to make sure that the coach got fired. But now that the coach got fired, I think people can go back to being like, yeah, the team was good in the first 2 weeks. First 4 weeks, frankly.
Like the problem is that it was kind of like, there was a veneer there on the tooth, but then like behind the tooth it was just hooked to like a little tiny stub, and when that thing fell off, there wasn't enough there to anchor that veneer to. Like the team was just too thin, and then the dentist didn't do a good enough job attaching the veneer. Like that was the problem. And then you go to him and say, hey.
Did you say the dentist or the dentist?
Either one. You go back to him and you say, hey, like, put this on. And he's like, I don't have any adhesive. You're just screwed. Now you're walking around with a weird little stub in the front of your mouth.
Excellent analogy. But I will say this, because pat ourselves on the back, or I'll pat you on the back. If you listen to us all offseason, I think I picked 8-9. I think you picked 9-8. I think you were wavering a little bit after training camp on that. But the thing we were wavering about was not their high-end talent. We were wavering about their depth. I mean, every write-up we ever had is we like their 22 starters. They can't afford injuries to like their 10 best players, and like 7 of those guys got hurt. So I mean, this season, if you listed the guys who got hurt, we would predict they're probably 2-7. Right?
But where I was wavering and I was wrong, I wanted to drop my wins because of Trevor Penning, and he's like,
that's funny.
Like, I don't know.
That was our biggest fear for this team all season long.
And I still think there's big problems there, but it's kind of just like. It's the least of like. It was like
so
you
funny.
you can live with this. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like if somebody went like
there's a guy that needs to turn it on down the stretch, Brian Brzee. If he
No
turned it on
question.
down the stretch, at least I would feel okay about something. I think he's been a little bit up and down this year, probably more down than up. I'm not as low on him as PFF is, but he definitely could be playing a little bit better, and it would be good to see that. Will be interesting to see if like Joe Woods tries to do anything to accentuate his pass rush ability today, and really the defense overall.
I believe in Brzee as a pass rusher, and I think the career question mark for him is whether he becomes a situational pass rusher or whether he can be turned into an every down player, because obviously his run defense hasn't gotten much better, or the teams as a whole certainly hasn't gotten better. I was going to finish that joke. I was going to say if you had put someone in a cave or something like that on September 1st and they just woke up today and they said, oh, the Saints are 2-7, they would think the number one reason was so Penning sucked, huh? Like, I mean, that would be the number one thought in that person's head.
Oh, he got Derek Carr injured, like is what they would have said. Yeah, like, oh no, like he gave up, like the quarterback got hurt. Yeah.
But to spin it all back, I'll tell you what is a huge culprit. Defensive line probably gets my vote for most disappointing unit on this team, because injuries have had nothing to do with their ineffectiveness. Like, the injury excuse exists everywhere on the roster except their position group.
I'm going to be super interested today too to see just kind of my big thing to watch today is just really how does the coaching staff work? Like, is it a mess? Is everything cohesive, or are they having to burn timeouts? I don't think they will. I mean, they practice that stuff this week. They practice their substitutions. I do think Rizzi's, at least based on anecdotal evidence, what they're doing in practice, what he's saying, I do think he's more detail-oriented than Dennis Allen already in some of that stuff. They weren't practicing substitutions. They are now. That's been an error area. But, I mean, what's the impact of losing the defensive play caller? That could really be a big deal. I don't know. We've just never seen Joe Woods do it. He's done it in the past. He's been okay in some places, not okay in others. Can you change that up in the middle of the season? I do think there's a lot of vets out there that is going to help with that transition, going front to back, whether, not even talking play quality, just going, you got Cam, DeMario, and Tyron at least, in three levels of leadership. I think that'll help with some of it, but he has to call the plays, and I don't know. The defense wasn't really good this year though either. So what's the downside? What's worse? You're giving up 3 50-yard plays a game instead of 2. Like what is the actual fallout here? I don't know, but something tells me that does matter. I mean, he has been demonstratively a good defensive coach for the better part of a decade, and I think losing that out of your building is. Just that isolated aspect away from the head coaching stuff. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like it matters.
Absolutely it does, and he's been he's been almost an elite defensive coach. He's been a great defensive coach. But their results this year, it's funny. I just heard someone say the other day on a fantasy podcast that going from Trevor Lawrence to Mac Jones feels like a big downgrade, but it's a big downgrade from what Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be to Mac Jones. You're right. From how Trevor Lawrence has actually played this year to Mac Jones is less of a downgrade.
Hold on now. I want you to look at this and tell me if you still think they're going to get the money line. There's your receiving core. Mason Tipton, Jermaine Jackson, Kevin Austin, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Dante Pettis. Wide receivers 1 to 5.
Yes.
All right, man.
When we're sitting here after the game.
If you get that, you get it. You get it.
Wednesday lunch. I won't bet in Vegas on the Saints, but I'll bet you a Wednesday lunch. But you have to give me 1.68 lunches to 1.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I will be the first one to give it up to you if they win today. I just can't. That feels like a big deal to me. I'm not saying it doesn't feel like a big deal to you, but I just don't believe in the rest of it.
You know what I'm betting on most of all? The funny thing is I don't bet on NFL games. I never have. Probably because if I grew up in this era where it was easy to do it on my phone, I probably would. I play fantasy football like crazy. But one thing that I've always been good about when it comes to predicting NFL games is that the NFL evens itself out. It always finds a way. I don't know with the refs, but when I see a 2-4 Rams team playing against a 4-2 Cardinals team, I'm like, I don't even need to look at the spread. I know the Rams are going to beat the Cardinals, and I don't think the Saints are going to finish 2-15 this year. So I think this might be one of their spots, but they might finish 4-13 or 5-12. So that's for sure.
Do you think anything? This is the big question in the chat. Do you think anything has changed with how Mickey Loomis is viewed, his standing, anything like that with the team?
Not necessarily, because that is a bond that has existed for decades. He's the most trusted guy. He's so trusted by Gail Benson that she asked him to make all the Pelicans hires because she just believes and his philosophy has never changed. He wants stability. He wants, he's the same guy he's always been, and she's always believed in that. But it does signal that this influenced. I don't think that philosophy is working in this situation. This is 7 straight losses. This is 4 straight years of losing. The fans are turning against us. We need to go away from that philosophy. So that, it does give you pause. It makes you wonder. It absolutely does. But I don't think that means Mickey Loomis is going to get fired. But maybe it'll be hey, we need to change the way things do. Can we bring someone else in? I have no idea. But it opened the door more than I ever thought.
I would be surprised if anything changes there. I don't think they'll make any changes there. My guess is, I would say the thing that changes is that there's probably more pressure on getting it right now than maybe there was before. And there was always that pressure. It's just we've all become aware that there's somebody placing pressure on the situation. And, I don't know what his interactions are, but he probably didn't expect, Gail Benson to act either the way she did in this situation. So now everybody knows. So I would say there's more pressure on it, but I don't think we'll see. I mean, look, anything could happen now. At least I'm at the point now where I'm anything could happen.
Yeah.
But I would be surprised if confidence is eroded into the point where there's some materially visible difference in how the team operates in the upcoming season. I think that's still a ways away.
I do think, though, this is up to Mickey. And I asked him this a couple different ways in his office, and he made it I haven't thought about that because I don't have to think about that yet. We're 2 months away from making these decisions. But I think he should consider every single possibility that leads to bringing the best culture builders into this building, because I don't think he's doing this for 10 more years. Maybe he's doing it for 8 more years. Maybe he's doing it for 4 more years. Maybe he's doing it for 2 more years. But this is his opportunity to bring in Belichick, to bring in Aaron Glenn, to bring in Vrabel, to bring in a different GM, to bring in a sharp young GM from another team that's doing things right, to look at things a different way. This is the opportunity to get building the future right. And if his role has to change in order to bring the right people in this building, I think maybe he would consider that.
Yeah, I think he would too. Inactives, you got them?
We got them. Is it time?
Yeah, it's 10:30.
All right, let's see. Sorry.
But yeah, I could definitely see Mickey being willing to move into more of a a higher up role.
All right, 4 injured guys that we knew about. Healthy inactives are Jalen Ford, Christian Boyd, and Spencer Rattler, third QB. This is really interesting, as I was saying before. 3 rookies from this year's draft class inactive today. This is not a team that has decided to play for the future yet.
No, definitely not. We're going to cover the game today. Everything you got. We got the live blog going.
Jamal
on
Williams
the site.
Was doubtful.
Yeah.
He's officially inactive.
We got the live blog on the site. Make sure you go check that out. Stick with us throughout the game. We're going to have our news analysis and all that stuff on the website. You can interact with us there, talk to the other Saints fans. Escape some of the toxic nature of Twitter. If you want to come over to our website, we'll be on there talking all throughout the game. After the game, news, analysis, breakdowns, all that stuff right then. Then around 7:30 tonight, we'll be right back here live exclusively on NewOrleans.Football, breaking down the game on our post-game show. So make sure you join us for that. I appreciate you guys for being with us for the pregame show. We'll talk to you in a little bit after kickoff.